Let's learn how to create an HTTPS Ingress Controller in our Kubernetes cluster. We use Ingress resources in order to map different URLs into different services or applications in our cluster, but we can use them also in order to configure TLS and SSL. In this demo, I'll show you how to secure your applications using Cert Manager, which could be installed inside our cluster, and that will connect to the Let's Encrypt in order to manage the certificates and then associate the certificate to our applications. The Cert Manager is an open source project available on GitHub, and it could be installed inside our Kubernetes cluster as an application, and then it can connect to the Let's Encrypt authority in order to issue certificates and use them for our services. This demo is a lab, so I have created this GitHub repository where you would find the different YAML manifest files and the different commands that we will be using during this lab. Actually, this video have a first part where we have started by creating an Nginx Ingress Controller, so you can follow the instructions provided here as in part 1, where we have created the Nginx Controller using Helm charts. We have installed that into our Kubernetes cluster. We have deployed 2 applications with 2 different services, and we have routed the traffic from a public URL into each service, depending on the /webapp1 or /webapp2. And in this second part, we'll continue on that demo, so I would recommend highly to go watch that first video. You'll find the link available here later. So in this second part, we want to enable HTTPS onto the URL of our web applications. And here we have the commands that we need for this lab. So first we'll go to create a new namespace, then we'll go to copy the Helm chart for the Cert Manager, and then we'll use Helm in order to install Cert Manager onto the Kubernetes cluster. After that, we'll go to create a cluster issuer resource that will connect to the Let's Encrypt to get the certificates, and then we'll create a TLS enabled Ingress controller. We'll configure that, and then we'll apply it into our cluster, and after that we should see our application running on HTTPS. So I start this part by creating a new namespace for the Cert Manager, and then I'll go to add the Helm chart for Cert Manager. So I'll go to my command line, namespace created, and the Helm chart was added successfully. Now I'll go to install that Helm chart for Cert Manager into my Kubernetes cluster. So I'll copy this command from here. Then I'll go to install the Cert Manager into my Kubernetes cluster using Helm charts. For that, I'll copy the command and then I'll use it in my command line. So I'll install it inside the namespace called Cert Manager, and I choose the right version here, and I need to set here install CRDs to true. If I don't set this to true, actually the Cert Manager will not install those CRDs which are needed in order to create the different resources needed to run the Cert Manager. And here it tells me that was deployed successfully. And now I can go to check the pods created by the Cert Manager. So we see here 3 pods are created to run it. Then we need to create the cluster issuer resource in Kubernetes. This one will configure where to connect. So here we're connecting the Let's Encrypt server in order to generate the certificates and manage them. And here I'm passing my email for validation. And we provide a name for the secret, for the private key secret right here. Let's encrypt, for example. And then I'm specifying that the Ingress controller resource that I'm using in my case is the Ingress or the Nginx Ingress controller. Let's go now to deploy this resource. So coming back to my command line, I'll go to install that into my app namespace where I have my applications. And here it tells me this resource was created. Now that we have the cluster issue resource here, we need to make some changes to the Ingress controller or to the Ingress resource that we are using. So here we are specifying that we want to use the Nginx Ingress controller. The cluster issue is Let's Encrypt. That is the value that we have specified into here. And then we have here a configuration for the TLS. So we want to configure TLS for this host. So each time we connect into here, this will be routed to the HTTPS port. And then here we are providing the secret name for our application certificate. And after that, we have the simple rule for mapping the requests from coming from this URL into our web app to service. So note here how I'm using the nip.io service in order to generate this URL. This will map this URL into this IP address, and this IP address is the one that was created for my Ingress controller. So if I switch back to my command line here, if I go to run kube control get ingress from all my namespaces, from here you'd see the web app ingress that I'm using that was created with this IP address that ends with 126. That's exactly the one you should replace into here. So let's go now to deploy this ingress controller or this ingress resource that uses TLS. So coming back to my command line, I'll go to run the kube control apply the file into the app namespace. So for now, I have a certificate that was issued. So if I go to try to get that certificate or to describe that certificate resource using the command describe cert with the name and the namespace for it, from here we would find the authority and the kind of that which is a certificate. And you would find here at the end of this description information about the certificate. So here it tells me certificate is up to date and has not expired yet, and it will expire by almost the end of this year. So here I have certificate created and ready. Let me go now to get the services running in my application. So we have service 2 is already running, and now I can go back to where I have the Ingress controller, and I can go to copy this value here for my host that I'm using. And if I switch to my web app, to my web browser, if I go to paste that value, that one, so here you see it was redirected to the HTTPS because now we have HTTPS enabled in our Kubernetes cluster using Cert Manager and Let's Encrypt. And here it tells me, yes, that the certificate is valid. And if I get more details here, you would see that it was now validated by my browser. So this was how to create those certificates using Let's Encrypt and Cert Manager, that you can do that also from your cloud provider. So in Azure, for example, we have documentation for how to enable that by creating a DNS zone for your applications. I hope this video was helpful for you, so thank you.